everybody, as my regular viewers will know, I've been using an Insta360 1X in my videos for a while now. I use a camera on my helmet because I'm a motovlogger, I should explain, if you don't know. I use a camera on my helmet, which is my main camera, and that captures my audio. And then I use one of these on my handlebars, and because you can split out the footage, so you don't, it is a 360 camera, but I don't use it as a 360 camera. I extract two video files out of this, one facing forwards and one facing backwards. So it means I have two cameras, three video views, but if I want to get an angle in some other direction that maybe it would have missed, I can realign for that moment of the video. So this allows you to record 360 the whole time. You can export 360 or you can export as a normal looking video, relatively normal. It can be quite fish-eyed. I actually quite like it, some people don't, but whatever. When I reviewed this camera, one of the things I said about Insta360 was that the firmware and the software was so solid, it was unbelievable. And it's one of the things I just loved because this camera just worked. Well, then I heard about Insta360 making the 1R, and again I asked them for one and they sent me this one a little while ago, quite a while ago now actually. And the reason I haven't made a review up until now is because I haven't really drawn a conclusion. Well, I hadn't, and I kind of have now, but I've seen a lot of large channels, not necessarily the motovlogging community, across many different spectrums, making videos on this camera, and yeah, they are quite truthful about how the camera works, but they haven't mentioned any of the other stuff. So I feel like it's important to give my honest opinion on it, as I have one, and I can add something to this. This is obviously just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm correct, I'm just saying with my experience of using these cameras, this has been what it's like. So, as I say, Insta360 1X, done a review on this, absolutely love this camera, and it's solid as hell. Until the 1R came out. Then we were having problems with the software for the 1X working, and there's been times throughout the past few months where this will and won't work. We're now back at a point that this thing is working again, and while all the time that it's working, this thing is fantastic. I should say here, because there is going to be, there's some negative connotations in this, I actually do really like Insta360. I like what they're doing, but I think things can be done slightly better, thought out a bit more. I'll talk about that more when I talk about why I'm not the biggest fan of this camera. As I say, I'm not against Insta360 or anything like that. I actually really like what they're doing. I think they're going to come out with some really cool products. I just wish they would make sure that the ones that are already made are still working properly, and that new developments in the programs to run this don't affect this. That would have been, the perfect scenario. If they brought this out and it had some issues, but this was still working great. But it seemed like because the studio software on PC was adapted for this, it caused problems for this. As I say, they are now resolved, as far as I know. They got back to me and they managed to give me some solutions to the problems I was having, and it's now working fine, as you've seen. So, yeah, this is working great. Quick overview of what the 1R is well, obviously this is a 360 camera. This is a modular 360 camera, so we'll take it out of its case. Now, there is some issues to do with this case, the fact that it's not even. Hippodrones has done a very long video talking about this camera, and he's mentioned how it only tilts one way so far and not so far the other way. And because that means sometimes you have to put the camera in the opposite direction you would have liked, you would like to have the screen not facing forward, obviously, going down the road, because it's liable to get damaged from a stone or something. Well, because the buttons are located where they are like this onto one side, although you can try and get it in the other way around, and in theory it would work, it doesn't work, because the screen's always going to be pointing this way. I'll show you what I mean. So you take this off and do this, and oh, I've got to put this in. Oh, this is another thing. The depth down to that SD card slot when it's in the case is almost impossible to actually get your fingers in there. It's hard enough getting the door in and out. So as you can see, the buttons are here. This is here with the screen facing forward. So if you're like, well, all right, it's a 360 camera, so it doesn't matter which way it faces. I'll just switch this around and put it that way. No problem. Apart from the fact that the buttons are now underneath here. These are just, these are on the case, remember. The actual camera buttons are now on this side. So you can't do that. Now, modular camera being, that's the battery pack. These last for about 45 minutes to an hour, and that will fill up a 32 gig SD about 1 and a bit times. So there's about 45, 50 minutes, to say something like that, is what I find I get out of them. So not bad, and not particularly expensive either, so that's quite a good thing. Compared to the the 1X, which uses these GoPro-esque style batteries. These last about 45 minutes, 50 minutes in here. In fact, I've been finding that the battery life on this has been increased recently. It seems to be running longer and longer. I'm not sure whether they've done a firmware update that's using less power inside or something, but getting a bit more battery life, not noticing any quality differences. So, good stuff. Now, back to this. So, modular being the fact that it all pulls apart, because this is your 360 module, so 2 lenses, and then they also sell this module, which is like a single lens, like a GoPro, and all you do is just, you know, click that in there, then you reattach this onto here, and now you've got like a little GoPro camera. Absolutely awesome, you know, screens on the back like that, if you want to have it that way. And if, for instance, you wanted to use this as a vlogging camera, or you want to do sort of like a pista camera, you can put it that way round, so you can see the screen, you can see the camera lens, you can see yourself as you're filming. Really good stuff, right? Loved the design. It seemed really clever. It meant that you could have both a GoPro style camera and a 360 in one, which is, you know, let's face it, a lot of these camera companies seem to go after the mass market. The most things they can get into a camera, the better, because that leads to more people buying the cameras. The problem is, I think they're aiming, and certain other companies I've worked with camera-wise in recent years have definitely done this. They're going down the route of hoping to be the camera that someone buys to go on one holiday, one trip, then chucks in the bottom of a drawer, and then doesn't ever use again. So it doesn't matter about longevity and problems like that. I'm not saying there's any longevity problems with this. This is all really nicely made. But then, you know, later down the line, they want to do it again. Oh, it's a bit out of date. Better get a new camera. That seems to be where they want to be, rather than making the camera that people need. That's why in this day and age, even though 8 years ago, you know, finding a camera to do motovlogging that had removable batteries and a 3.5mm jack for audio, and it just worked, that was the reality, I say, 8 years ago. Now it's not. Now you can't go to GoPro because they've got this media mod thing that everyone says doesn't work. There's all sorts of other guff you have to attach to it. Yes, okay. These people exist, they make cameras, this is the bane of my life. I just wish someone else would do something like this that just worked properly and didn't have a sillily narrow 140-degree field of view. Otherwise, this little camera is not that bad, if I'm honest. This is the, alright, fine, this is the Drift 4K. This is what we're talking about. I've worked with Drift as an ambassador for years. I don't work with them anymore, because since the Ghost S, it wasn't the camera we wanted and it wasn't the camera we asked for. And every camera that comes from on forward from that point is kind of like, we want more battery life, we want more this, we want more features, but not actually making the camera work properly. Like putting a 140-degree field of view lens on an action camera is not an action camera in my opinion. Now, as I say, this is all my opinion. It's coming from a perspective of someone who makes motorcycling videos. But I'm in the very small percentage of people that use these cameras every single day to make a living. A lot of people own them, not many people use them daily and have done for like nearly a decade. So this is why I do not recommend drift cameras. Other than the problems that people had with other models, they're just not pushing things forward. It's more about battery life and trying to sell it to the biggest amount of people rather than making a product that at the end of the day is just what we need. Okay, motovlogging is not the biggest area of the market, but it extends. Motovlogging, yeah, paragliding, there's loads of different sports. Skiing, where you might want to talk while you're doing it, and being able to plug a microphone into it satisfactorily without having problems of like it sticking out too far and hitting your shoulder, having multiple connectors in the way. What I'm being annoyed about is seeing channels pushing this as the next best thing, as this is a perfect solution for having a 360 camera and a GoPro. It's not. From a motorcycling perspective, this camera is better because it's narrower, so the stitch lines of things closer to the camera are better. Where this is that much wider, if anything's a bit closer, it doesn't stitch so well. So if you're using this as a 360 camera on a selfie stick or about a metre away from the subject, no problems, great little bit of kit. Only problem is, and this is my one remaining issue with this camera in the sense of like a development thing, the accelerometers in here, because obviously it's got accelerometers in it so it knows in which direction it's facing, sometimes get very confused and your footage starts spinning and doing barrel rolls and all sorts of stuff. Now you can tell it to lock straight in the program, but it can't do it because as far as it knows, the accelerometers know, that is straight because it thinks I'm doing this with the camera. It's particularly kicked off if you have the camera at a certain angle, but no one really knows what that angle is. And if you're getting a lot of G-forces on the camera from like hard cornering, hard braking, riding the bike vigorously, that can cause these sort of spinning issues. although I've also had them happen completely randomly. I'm sure Insta360 can work on that, and as I say, that's not a big... It's the one remaining issue that I know they can work on. But as I say, so as a 360 camera, yeah, it's great, but it's not as good as this in my context. A lot of people would still say this is one of the best 360 cameras out there, and I would agree with them. As long as Insta360 keeping that software working, not falling behind with bugs and stuff, then yes, this is a really good bit of kit. So as I'm saying, this isn't bad, but for motorcycling, for what I do, this is better. Okay, so it's a good thing to have. But yeah, whatever, it's still just a GoPro, so it can be used as a GoPro, right? And you've got the option of doing a bit of 360. Well, no, because this isn't actually as good as a GoPro. Quality looks okay. It's not wide enough again. And they do claim there is a super wide if you put it in 30 FPS, but actually, to my understanding, it just chops the top and bottom off of the original sized image to make it look wider. The audio options for this also were this Insta360 little adapter. This took quite a long time to get to me, and unfortunately this one wasn't stuck together properly. But you know, that gives you an opportunity to see what's inside their adapters. And the idea of this was that you open the battery door on the side, thus it's no longer waterproof, and the SD card's right there, and then you plug this in here, and then you plug your audio into there. Not an ideal solution, but livable, doable. Unfortunately, the audio that comes from this just isn't up to scratch compared to something like the Drift. The quality that I get from this with my custom-made microphone is very good, and it's where it needs to be. This isn't there for that, in my opinion, again. So for me, this was a very early one, I will say, because as I say, this is not some hate piece to Insta360. This is, please try and do better with some of these things. That was one of the very early ones. It could have been a production issue. Well, I can see there's glue here, but it's probably just not enough. That's, as I say, this is no great thing, but it doesn't matter anyway because the quality from it is not so good. So, if that camera is not as good as a GoPro, and it's not really doing the job, and this isn't as good as your other 360 camera, why have it? And it's still got those recurring problems with the spinning issue. It's like, well, why go for that? This is the problem. When you try and make a device to do many jobs, it just never, although it will do them to a point, it never does any of them well enough to stand alone, in my opinion, again. So the quality of the footage from this could be absolutely fine for maybe 95% of the people that use it, but it's not what I was hoping it would be. I was hoping this would be as wide as a GoPro. You know, if it just got to 2.7K 60 FPS, that's all anyone would want. That would be perfect. The limitations of this is not to do with the cameras, it's to do with the form factor, and it's like, okay, well, you can kind of forgive that because it just is what it is, but this is better. But yeah, I just felt like with all these videos going around of people saying about how wonderful and all the features and stuff is, they're not actually being honest about the user experience of the software in the past few months. I know I'm not the only one. I know there's other people out there who've been using these cameras, experimenting and finding their own issues, their own problems. It's like, it's a good shot at an idea, but it's not quite there. Make that as wide and as good as a GoPro at 2.7K 60 FPS. Get a 3.5mm jack in it somewhere that is waterproof, ideally, and doesn't stick outside. Just do it smartly. Even if you supply an adapter which is 90 degrees, so it takes it out the camera and down, everyone's going to prefer that to it sticking even further out the camera, because this stuff, you know, giving this as your charging port, if I pull this over sideways really hard, you know it's not going to be good for it. As I say, I've seen a couple of reviews from channels that I follow, not motorcycle related, they're actually completely unrelated to this, and I was surprised at their review of it giving my experience with it. So I thought, well, you have to get all sides of all arguments to know a review, so there you go, there's my side of it. So yeah, build quality is good, idea is okay, execution of the technical specs is not great. Issues along the way, that is a thing, and software issues, having to wait time for things to be updated before they work again, is not really an option, and that's why I didn't turn this into a main camera. That was my idea. The idea was that I could have this on my handlebars as my 360 camera, and I'd use this on my helmet instead of my Drift, because it means that this is my main camera. I can't trust this to be my main camera because it doesn't last long enough. Oh, and I also forget one massive thing, God. When you're recording with a camera, once it gets to about 4 gigabytes file size, it will have to end the video and restart a new one. Now, with something like a GoPro, it's instantaneous. You can just butt the two videos up together and you won't see the gap. With the drift, all that varies a little bit from, from virtually not noticeable up to a few seconds, a couple of seconds, completely random. It used to do it in the past. We used to call it the drift gap. However, the Insta360 1R, when this changes slide, it takes, depending on how long you've been recording beforehand, up to 1.5 minutes to start recording again. So it can't record and then start recording again instantly. There's this big gap. And obviously that means you miss out a minute of video. And if you're using this is a main camera, you can't do that. So that's what I'm saying. I can't use this as a main camera because of the gaps, because of so many different things. Very frustrating. If you're watching this Insta360, nice attempt. I like the idea, but those are the few issues I have with it. No hard feelings. I can't wait to see what you've got coming in the future. I don't know if I'm supposed to know anything, but I hear there's something maybe related to this coming in the future. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I'm very interested in that. So if you want to send me one, I will look at it. Definitely. I'm now going to outline what camera it is that we all want, I believe, as motovloggers. Okay, so the GoPro form factor, we're going to use this as an example, sticks out quite a long way. It's getting better. They're better suited to chin bars and stuff like that. But why not make this camera so the lens is on that end? Turn it sideways. Make it mountable onto a helmet from the side. You're now the same size as the Drift 4K, which is currently like the best ergonomic camera as far as it comes to helmet mounting, although I have it that way around. Because it's in line, it's small, more streamlined, doesn't stick out miles, it's just better. When your head moves side to side, it will be amplified if it sticks out further. Panning becomes faster, as you're moving away from the pivot point of a radius, whatever it's called, you have to move faster for you know what I'm saying. So we want something in this sort of form factor. Just do that. We also want a 3.5mm jack, because I don't need to explain that. 3.5mm jack, please. Preferably with some sort of O-ring or something to make it waterproof. Work it out. Removable batteries are a must. An hour per battery is acceptable. 2 hours per battery would be great. I will say for drift, for this battery, this giant hunking thing on the side here, I get about 3 or 4 hours out of it. It's great. I really like that about it. Of course, it's going to crash 20 times in that time, but, at least it was on. What Drift did here with the spinning mount and with the spinning lens is absolutely fantastic, because it means no matter how you put it on your helmet, you can adjust the up and down and you can adjust the roll. The only thing you can't adjust is how dead ahead it will be when you're looking forwards, as in around or too far forward on the curve of the side of your helmet. You have to get that bit right, but you get that bit right and everything else is adjustable. So, that's great. I'm talking to Drift here too. If you want to go back and, make cameras that we want, then, yeah, but I've already emailed you before you brought out this camera explaining what we wanted and you didn't listen. But again, of course, not everyone wants the same thing. So this sort of form factor, that sort of battery life. And as for specs, field of view, 160 minimum. Nothing less than 160 degrees field of view. It needs to be a minimum of 2.7K, 1440p, something like that, at 60 FPS. That's all we need. I know 4K, everyone's going at 4K. Look, this camera's years and years old and it's 4K. How many people have 4K TVs? How many people watch stuff on their mobiles in 4K? They don't, because there's no point. How many people watch YouTube videos at 4K? Some of you do, most of you don't. Because it just, it's going to eat up a lot more internet speed. It may not be as smooth on your computer. It'll be fine and you may enjoy it. Is it necessary on a computer screen that's 23, 24, 25 inches compared to, HD? Don't waste time worrying about 4K. Just get decent, even if it was 1080p, 60 FPS, I would take that over this. But no, it needs to be 2.7K, something like that, 60 FPS. Don't worry about millions of different features, burst mode and all this stuff. Have different video formats, formats and qualities, so you can get more out of your memory card and battery, because it uses less power on lower qualities generally, and frame rates generally. But beyond that, it just needs to be a camera that you put a card in, set your quality, go, stop. But we want it to go and stop every time you press that button. Never ever do I want to press that button and then find out half an hour later that the video I've just recorded doesn't exist. Just, that needs to end. And you can try and blame it on the SD card, and you can try and blame it on this, that and the other, and you can try and cover it up by having a thing that pops up and says Wi-Fi enabling even when Wi-Fi's off, even though it's just the camera needs to wait 20 seconds before it can warm up and actually start recording reliably. You know, that's what the Ghost S was, in my opinion. And where is a Ghost S? You know, this is the old Ghost S. This isn't even that big. I'd still happily use the Ghost S, but I mean, look, it's only marginally bigger. Only marginally. But this thing's got a 3.5mm jack. It's got a screen on it that didn't need to be that big, but it's nice it's there. You've got removable batteries, although sometimes you have to put a piece of paper in there to make the spring work properly. This, you know, 160-degree field of view. Replaceable lens, by the way. This might be a replaceable lens, but I've never seen Drift stock it. Replaceable lens in case you smash it. This thing worked. Yes, there was a lot of problems in the early days, and yes, it took a while to learn it, to get it to work properly. No, actually, it didn't work, did it? It was full of bugs the whole time. But when it did work, when you got around all those bugs, when you learnt everything, once you didn't try and start within the first, like, 15 seconds, reliable, good. I knew when I turned that camera on, it was going to record what was going on. That's what I want again. But just this in this, but with the better quality, you know? And as I say, Drift doesn't seem to want to go down that line. They've just brought out the new Ghost 4K Plus, which can now do streaming with a phone. But it still can't do 60 FPS in 4K, and it doesn't seem like the specs are much better at all. It seems like the same thing that's just been allowed to... I mean, I haven't seen all the specs yet. Maybe they've increased it from 140 to 160. I doubt it, but, you know. As you can tell, this is a subject which frustrates me, because all these camera companies are out there making these cameras and failing at doing what the people want. Making these cameras which just get close to the mark, but not quite there. There's plenty of people out there who've been doing this stuff for years. You make the camera we want, and we will all get one. And then when we have those cameras and people see that they're trustworthy and good, and we like them, they will buy them too. And they will be happy to pay a little bit of a premium to know it's a good camera that works, something we can stand behind. It just annoys me when I see, you know, channels bigging up cameras which aren't really there. You know, it's like, yes, it's a great idea, yes, it's this, that and the other, but you just haven't quite nailed it. And them not mentioning those things just feels a bit dishonest to me, because I know they had the issues. There's no way that someone stuck this to a remote-controlled drone, plane, different things, span it upside down and did all these things and didn't have a single issue with that, with the you know, the gyroscopes getting confused, if just doing it on a motorcycle can do it. As I say, no hate towards the Insta360. I think you are going to do some great things in the future, and I'd love to work with you even in helping you develop something, because trust me, you'll sell them. Drift, I would still do the same for you. If you would listen, if you would make the thing that we need, and if you'd stop going after the bottom drawer denomination rather than the quality product that people can actually use, a tool which works rather than just suits many uses. Or maybe it's that motovloggers and extreme sports people and stuff like that just aren't a big enough draw in the market anymore, and now, as I say, they're just going to go for whatever sells cameras. And if I was in the camera business, I understand why you'd do that, so yeah. But it'd be nice if someone out there would go, no, I'm going to be the person, we're going to be the company that makes the camera that those people need. I'm waiting for someone to step up. There is an absolute fortune to be made if you're a camera developer and you can produce that thing. Because let's face it, it's not that different from a camera which existed, what, 5 years ago, if not more. So apologies for the bit of a rant, but I'm very passionate about this because this is what I do every day, and I want the tools to help me bring the best videos to the people who watch them. You've seen how things are developed. You can be more immersive and bring people along with you much better if you have the tools to do it. But you need those tools to do the things you want them to do, and you need those tools to be reliable. if you're a motovlogger or a creator and you use these cameras, you know, anything like this, and you can give your experience with, you know, what problems you've had or how well you found them to work. As I say, a lot of the things with me, it's just specs. It can't be changed. But there's that one thing left in firmware with it spinning that may be able to be updated, or maybe it's something in the design of the camera. But anyway, I'd like to know what your experience with these cameras has been, what you'd like to see out of a camera. And camera companies, if you want, seriously, contact me. I will let you know what it is that I believe people need. Go and ask other people in the industry. Maybe, you know, have it on paperwork. Come up with the idea of a camera and send it to a load of content creators and say, do you think this is good? Ask for feedback. Take that feedback, apply it, and create the camera that people want. My God. Catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.